shoot, 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 shoot.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome, sports and shorts of sorts. It's your man Ren City back doing our thing, episode 75. Wow, we are just rolling with this, so let's roll right into the world of footy, going to the Premier League. We had a pretty big matchup to start off here with Brighton hosting Manchester United. Both were coming off wins in their opening match. Home side opened the scoring in the 32nd minute. A low cross by Matoma found former Man U striker Danny Welbeck. His tap-in gave Brighton the 1-0 lead. The second half, Brighton were looking to double their lead, but hit the crossbar. And that was big because soon after, United went on the attack and Diallo would get the ball. He'd make a nice move for firing a shot that took a big deflection, found the back of the net, and that 60-minute strike tied the game at 1. That equalizer opened the game up a bit, and you'd see chances on both ends. One substitute came in, immediate impact. Bruno Fernandes squared up a lovely pass into the box. It was missed by substitute Xerxes, but the ball kept sliding right to sub Alejandro Garnacho. It looked like his shot was going in. He was just on the pitch a few minutes, but it hit Xerxes, who had slid, trying to get the initial pass, and he couldn't stop sliding. So when Garnacho shot it, he tried getting out of the way, but it hit him going into the net. And he was offside, so that was a tough disallowed goal. It was just millimeters, really. But the game continued, and the home side started getting more chances. And in stoppage time, they'd go up for a second time. A unsuccessful corner came to Adringa, who would cross it into the box while Pedro was back post. And he'd score, giving Brighton the 2-1 lead in the 95th minute. And the Seagulls would ruin Man U's day, winning 2-1. Very late goal, and it was a nice one. Tottenham was hungry for a win after settling for a draw to open the season, while Everton was looking to improve from a beatdown they started the season with. But Tottenham looked more likely to score and did so in the 14th minute. Kulusevski laid the ball up for Basuma, who scored his first Tottenham goal with some venom on it, smashing it off the crossbar and in, giving Tottenham the 1-0 lead. The 25th minute, Everton's season of calamities are growing. A bad throw-in led to a rush-back pass, which didn't go well for keeper Jordan Pickford, who saw Son easily double Tottenham's lead. And the game stayed that way until the 71st minute. Tottenham would add a third. Corner kick, Christian Romero seemed very unbothered while rising up for the header. No defense present there. 6 minutes later, Everton was looking for a goal, but Tottenham went on a counterattack. Mickey Van de Ven, long run for him before he'd find Son, who scored a brace to give Tottenham a 4-0 lead. Huge win for Tottenham as they won 4-0, but Everton, what a bad start. Losing both games to start the season by a combined score of 7-0. They're still looking for their first goal of the season after 2 games. They remind me of some kids being forced to participate in gym class. They just are lacking desire out there. At least the season's just 2 games old. A lot of time to turn it around. Crystal Palace hosted my West Ham in a London derby. Palace did look more dangerous. Eze Crow, the beauty that looked to go in but hit the crossbar. We were tied at 0-0 going in the halftime. But in the second half, West Ham brought on newcomer from Man U, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Got a nice ovation from the Crystal Palace supporters as he grew up in their youth system. And he had an immediate impact for West Ham, avoiding a challenge, going on a long run, finding a pass that went to Jared Bowen, who kept his run going, where the ball came to Thomas Souček, and the big check found the back of the net, as he does for West Ham. And in celebration, he was going to the supporters, and the little wall fell over, landing, almost crushing a Crystal Palace ball boy. Souček and some of the players got him out to make sure he was okay. He looked all right. And the game continued, and Palace looked for a quick response. Eze was on the attack, but he was dispossessed by newcomer Max Kilman. He went on a little scamper of his own before finding Jared Bowen, who cut in and scored for West Ham. The new league captain putting his second goal in just 4.5 minutes after the first goal. And West Ham picked up the win in the London derby, the first win for new manager Julen Lopetegui. Not the ideal start for Crystal Palace, as they have dropped their first 2 matches to start the season. Newly promoted Southampton hosted Nottingham Forest, and the visitors looked more likely to score, getting a lot more chances. And despite that, we'd go 70 minutes without a goal. Then one came via Forrest's Morgan Gibbs-White. A wild fury in the box had the ball fall to him, and he found the back of the net, giving the visitors the 1-0 lead, and that's just how it would end, as Forrest remained unbeaten on the season. Well, a slow start for Southampton as they've lost both their games by a 1-0 scoreline to start the year. Fulham hosted last year's championship winners, Leicester City, and the home team got off to a better start when new arrival from Arsenal, Emile Smith-Rowe, scored his first goal at the club during his home debut. A sneaky low shot that beat the keeper, giving Fulham the 1-0 lead after 18 minutes. But the visitors would equalize from a corner kick in the 38th minute. Defender Face would score with his head to tie the game up, and VAR had a long look. Jamie Vardy was in the offside position, but he had nothing to do with the goal, and it stood. So it stayed that way until about the 70th minute, where Fulham would go on the attack, and Alex Iwobi would power his shot through the hands of Leicester keeper Mads Hermansen. I bet the Danish keeper wishes he could have another shot of that one. But regardless, a Iwobi shot went in, giving Fulham the lead for the second time in the match and clinching the 2-1 win for the London side. Shock in the city of Manchester as newcomers to the Premier League, Ipswich Town, grabbed the early lead in their match. Not even 7 minutes in, the visitors went on their counter-attack with Smodics going through the legs of City keeper Edison with just enough to get into the back of the net. But that lead was short-lived. Minutes later, Man City new arrival from Girona, Savinho, he'd get taken down in the box with a clumsy tackle. VAR had a look and confirmed the decision, where Norwegian Erling Haaland stepped up, converting from the spot, tying the game after 5 minutes. After 5 minutes of going down. But then less than 2 minutes later, City, after 2 minutes after tying it up, they'd get the ball served on a plate when Ipswich Town keeper Muric would not handle the Savinho pressure well, coughing it up to Kevin De Bruyne, who'd easily score, giving Man City the first lead in the match. And Muric, that's kind of what got him in trouble with relegated Burnley last year, so it's something he's definitely got to work on. And before another 2 minutes could pass, De Bruyne sent the perfect pass to Haaland, who still had work to do, but he did it great, scoring a brace, going from 1-0 to up 3-1 in less than 8 minutes. And City almost added more goals. Rico Lewis missed the net wildly, De Bruyne hit the crossbar, and this Man City faithful gave a nice ovation to Ilkay Gundogan, who made his return to the club after his brief stint in Barcelona. And late in the match, Haaland would complete his hat trick, getting the ball outside the box, doing a swivel and fire from very long out. But it had enough power to find the corner of the net, giving him his 10th hat trick with Man City, 7th in the Premier League, which moves him to 5th all-time with Wayne Rooney. He's 5 behind all-time leader and Man City legend Sergio Aguero. And Man City held on for the 4-1 win. And for a few minutes, Man City looked worried, but that might have just awoken a beast as they won 4-1. Aston Villa and Arsenal. This is a game when I saw the schedule I was looking forward to. Saka almost opened the scoring up for Arsenal, but former Arsenal keeper Emi Martinez made a wonderful save. And then not long after, Ollie Watkins should have put Villa ahead. Alone in the box, he missed the net. It was just a bad miss. He should have put it at least on target, but Villa did look dangerous throughout the game. And man, Morgan Rogers, he is such a physical runner. He's hard to dispossess. He really impressed me for Villa in this one. And Villa had another great opportunity to score, but David Raya back-to-back outrageous saves to keep the game goalless. And in the 67th minute, after being on the pitch just less than 2 minutes, Leandro Trossard would slot his shot into the back of the net. It looked like it was going out of bounds before, but Saka kept it in, set up the goal, and then Arsenal would double their lead. Less than 10 minutes later, they were pressing, and it looked like the attack stalled. That was until Saka dropped the ball to Thomas Partey, and his low shot had just enough power to get through Martinez's hand into the back of the net. Arsenal won 2-0 and started their season off with back-to-back victories. Bournemouth hosted Newcastle, and the hosts looked much more dangerous. Antoine Semenyo almost got Bournemouth on the board in the 26th minute, but he hit the crossbar. But they'd keep up the pressure, and Semenyo would dispossess the Newcastle player, leading to a counterattack, where Semenyo spotted Marcus Tavernier in the box, and he'd score to give Bournemouth a 1-0 lead after 37 minutes. The second half, after trailing, Newcastle would go on the attack, and a wonderful cross by substitute Harvey Barnes spotted a streaking Anthony Gordon, who tied the game up in the 76th minute. Bournemouth almost answered immediately. Long-range strike by substitute Alex Scott narrowly missed the top corner. Then in the 90th minute, Bruno Guimaraes would look top corner. It would look like it was going in. But Bournemouth keeper Neto made a clutch save to keep the game tied. And that's just how the game would end, 1-1. It was a rowdy one, but It could have went 2-1 when Dango Watra hit the back of the net, and it looked good for Bournemouth, but the replay showed it hit his shoulder, and it looked like he kind of shimmied it in. So that's why it stayed 1-1. And the home crowd didn't like that decision, but you could understand why. Wolves took on Chelsea, and just before halftime, Chelsea went on a counter-attack, triggered by a long kick by keeper Robert Sanchez. Ball came to Palmer, who pinpointed his shot into the open net, and they went up when Wolves' keeper was way off his line, and that gave Chelsea the lead again. Then first half stoppage time, Wolves sent the ball into the box, and it was headed to Strand Larson, who tied the game up. And this game was 2-2 going into the half after all these goals. And in the second half, it would just take minutes for Chelsea to start going. The attack looked stalled, but out of nowhere, Chelsea's Palmer spotted Madueke. His powerful shot had a deflection for going in, and Chelsea was up 3-2 after 49 minutes. Less than 9 minutes later, and almost a carbon copy of the first goal, Palmer set up Madueke, who did need a deflection this time, and Chelsea led 4-2. And I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but another one, Palmer setting up Madueke almost exactly like the first two, and he scores hat-trick. He did that in 14 minutes from first goal to third goal, all set up by Palmer, and just like that, it was 5-2. Looked like Wolves got one back, but it was offside, so Chelsea put the icing on the cake when Pedro Neto would go on a speedy run before finding João Felix. He'd score to make it 6-2, and yikes. You can see Wolves fans leaving early, and yeah, Chelsea picked up a bounce-back win after losing the first game, while Wolves have lost both their games of this season by a combined score of 8-2. Liverpool were hosting Brentford. Brentford were on the attack and looking for a goal from a corner kick. But from that kick, Liverpool went off to the races the other way. And Diogo Jota picked up the ball, scampering a good distance before finding Luis Diaz. He finished clinically to put up the side, Liverpool 1-0 after 13 minutes. And the game stayed that way until the second half. Liverpool's goal scorer, Luis Diaz, would spot Mo Salah. He'd finish as he usually does, doubling Liverpool's lead after 70 minutes. Back-to-back games with a goal for the Egyptian goal machine. And Liverpool won this match 2-0. Back-to-back 2-0 wins for Liverpool in the Arne Slot era. He's the first manager to win both of his first matches in charge since Graham Souness did it in 1991. So after 2 match days in the Premier League, defending champion Man City sit atop the league on goal difference. Along with Brighton, Arsenal, and Liverpool are the only teams who have won both their opening matches. Tottenham, Newcastle, and Forest are just behind that group, still unbeaten, but with 4 points on the season. Some great matches upcoming in match day 3. Start with the first one early on Saturday, August 31st. Arsenal hosting Brighton. As mentioned, both teams won their first 2 matches of the season, and that one should be good. And the late game on Sunday should be fun, or disastrous, but I'm hoping for the former. My West Ham host Man City, and I'd love nothing more for us to shock the champions in London. And each of the Sunday matches in the Premier League look great. Chelsea hosting Crystal Palace. Palace looked to avoid a third straight defeat. Newcastle hosts Tottenham at St. James Park. And the finale of the weekend, Man U hosting Liverpool, a hated rivalry featuring 2 of England's biggest clubs and 2 Dutch managers looking to better each other. So a great weekend coming up for footy in England. Some other footy mentions throughout the midweek. There's second round of Carabao Cup that's been going on as of yesterday and today. And some shout-outs to some of the leagues below in England. Stunning goal in the Blackburn Rovers Oxford United game. Mark Harris for Oxford United. What a goal. If you haven't seen it, check it out. They did lose 2-1, but wow, amazing goal. And in League One play, Wrexham shut out Reading at the racecourse, winning 3-0. Great start for Wrexham, remaining undefeated on their early season with 2 wins and a draw in League One play. And that takes us to Germany now. We'll hop to Germany, where the Bundesliga kicked off their opening games. As mentioned last episode, they were one of the leagues that hadn't started yet. And it started with Mönchengladbach hosting Leverkusen, the unbeatens who went all of last season without losing a game. And they started this off pretty well. Magic strike by former Mönchengladbach man Granit Xhaka. He drilled the ball from long range that curled into the corner. He didn't celebrate, as you know, former players don't like to do, and Xhaka's a pretty classy guy, but what a start to the Bundesliga season. An amazing goal. Just 12 minutes in, Leverkusen had that lead, and Mönchengladbach looked to equalize but couldn't find the back of the net, where Leverkusen will double their lead after some pressure led to some good chances, and last year's Golden Boot winner Florian Wirtz would score his first of the season, doubling the visitors' lead after 38 minutes. The home side looked to finally get on the score sheet. A scrappy goal from a free kick that would end up having Tim Kleindienst heading the ball in like a foot off the ground. It was crazy. But VAR disallowed the goal, saying there was contact leading up. The fans didn't like it, and it was kind of harsh, but you could see what the ref was seeing. So instead of going in the halftime 2-1 down, the hosts went in the halftime 2-0 down. And there'd be a lengthy pause to start the second half as all the fans lit up fireworks. You could barely see the pitch with all the smoke bellowing. Eventually, play would continue, and Mönchengladbach would get a goal that counted. A free kick in a dangerous spot went back post, which was headed to Nico Elvedi, who was stopped initially, but his rebound was hidden, and VAR had a look, but it stood. For 59 minutes, it was 2-1. Leverkusen had a chance to make it 3-1, but could not convert, and that proved costly as Mönchengladbach's Kevin Stoger put the softest touch on his pass right to new arrival from Heidenheim, Tim Kleindienst, who was making his debut, and this time his goal counted. It was tied at 2 after 85 minutes. Stoppage time, Alejandro Grimaldo had an amazing chance to regain the lead for Leverkusen but missed the net. Substitute Thomas Savenkera had a very late chance for the hosts, but his shot went over the net. This game was stopped to check on a foul in the box on the other end on the Mönchengladbach area, and the foul in the box was given. Leverkusen awarded a very late penalty. On the replay, you could see there was contact, but it was pretty marginal, and it was after the ball was already knocked away. So a tough decision that gave the visitors a penalty just under the 100th minute mark. Florian Wirtz had his penalty stopped by keeper Jonas Omlin, but Wirtz pounced on his own rebound, giving Leverkusen the late lead, 3-2 in the dying moments of the match, much as what they did all of last season. Like I said, a big win for the defending champs. Their unbeaten streak in Bundesliga play continues. They went all of last season, 34 matches unbeaten. That streak grows to 35 after their opening weekend victory. Red Bull Leipzig hosted Bochum, and this was a scrappy match to start. Leipzig had more of the ball, but both teams had plenty of chances to score. After a scoreless first half, we'd finally see a goal in the 59th minute. Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko would dispossess a Bochum player, and the ball found its way to 19-year-old substitute Nusa. He'd find in the back of the net, scoring the match's opening goal in his debut with the club. And late in the match, Bochum were on a dangerous counterattack that was looking like trouble. But Leipzig captain Willi Orban took one for the team. His lunging tackle prevented a one-on-one goal-scoring opportunity. So we knew it was going to be a red card and dismissal from the game. But instead of a potential one-on-one in the box, he fouled him outside the 18. So it was a long free kick. It led to nothing. So that red card really helped out, taking one for the team. Orban will be suspended for the next game against Leverkusen, which is pretty big, but he did what he had to do to preserve the win. Some might say, hey, that was dirty, but, it was a foul. He took his punishment, and it works, much like people getting a handball when there's an open net. It at least gives your keeper a chance at a penalty stop, much like Uruguay's Luis Suarez did against Ghana in the 2010 World Cup. Hoffenheim took up newcomers Holstein Kiel, and this was an exciting one. The home side got an early penalty chance when the striker beat the keeper to the ball and got fouled, leading to Andrej Kramaric stepping up and stutter-stepping his way to a goal, giving Hoffenheim the 1-0 lead after 6 minutes. But later in the first half, Bolter sent in a wonderful cross, which was met by Kramaric, his second of the game, doubling the lead in the 37th minute. The home side had 2 glorious chances for a third goal, but Holstein Kiel keeper Timon Weiner made 2 unreal saves to keep it 2-0 going in the halftime. And in the second half, Holstein Kiel got their goal. A beautiful cross by substitute Porath was met by Alexander Bernhardsson, and his goal made it 2-1 after 63 minutes. Either team looked capable of scoring the next goal, but a red card would shake things up. Holstein Kiel's Yobel Kelati would pick up 2 yellow cards in quick succession. The newly promoted club played the last bit of the game a man down. And with just 10 men, they almost tied the game up. But from the ensuing goal kick, Hoffenheim would get a good shot on net. And that ended with Kramaric securing a goal from the rebound to make it 3-1. Opening the season with a hat-trick's pretty insane, considering Kramaric finished the season with a hat-trick in a 4-2 win over Bayern Munich in the last match of last season. So he's been on a scoring record here with Bundesliga play. And the visitors didn't give up, though. 2 minutes after Kramaric's score, Machino scored from a corner to make it 3-2. But that's as close as they got. Big win for Hoffenheim. Big game for Kramaric, who, like I said, back-to-back hat tricks. That's pretty crazy. Separated by an off season, but regardless, that's awesome. Mainz hosted Union Berlin as both teams were hoping to avoid a relegation battle this season. The first half, Union Berlin had more chances, but we'd get no goals going in the halftime. So early in the second half, Mainz would earn a free kick outside the box. Amory would curl a beauty over the wall into the back of the net, had some wicked spin. He'd celebrate with a golf chip in honor of his lovely chip. The hosts led 1-0 after 53 minutes, but Berlin started to ramp up the pressure, looking for an equalizer. And a nice build-up came to substitute Laszlo Benes. He had some space outside the box, and he'd turn and unleash a powerful shot that took a deflection, but found the back of the net, tying the game at 1 in the 74th minute. The Slovakian had just got subbed into the game less than 2 minutes before scoring his goal, and it was his debut with the club after joining from Hamburger this summer. So that goal tied it up, and that's how it would end in a 1-1 draw. Freiburg started their season hosting Stuttgart. Stuttgart had that magical campaign last season where they finished second in the table, qualifying for Champions League. And the visitors got off to a great start. A corner led to Demirvich pulling off a wonderful over-the-head kick that beat the keeper, giving Stuttgart a 1-0 lead less than 2 minutes into the match. Freiburg would equalize in the 26th minute when Kubler would try his luck from outside, spotting the corner and beating the keeper, who was remaining stationary, tying the game at 1. Which is how the game stood for a while until the second half. We'd see a goal, but we didn't know if it would count. Scrappy scene where Ritsu Doan was on his backside, but so was the Stuttgart keeper. It looked like they were lining up for a leg wrestling contest, but Doan redirected the ball into the net. A weird-looking goal where VAR had to have a look, but it stood, and Freiburg grabbed their first lead of the match, 2-1. The home side put the nail in the coffin. Just 7 minutes later, a corner kick was met by a leaping Kubler, who secured his brace and secured the 3-1 win for Freiburg. Augsburg took on Werder Bremen, and Augsburg opened their season, with the visitors opened the scoring, in the 12th minute. A cross into the box with all eyes on the group in the middle, but no one saw Felix Agu sneaking in, and he'd get the ball, finding the back of the net with his low shot, giving Bremen the early lead, but they barely led for 4 minutes until the hosts tied it up. Elvis Rexbachai, he blasted a rocket from long range that found the top corner and tied things at 1 after 16 minutes. The home side would turn it all the way around in the 35th minute when a wonderful cross by Tim Breithaupt was headed in by Asende, who scored his first Bundesliga goal, giving Augsburg the 2-1 lead after trailing 1-0 earlier. And Werder Bremen turned up the pressure in the second half, getting their equalizer in the 58th minute. Nice cross by Mitchell Weiser was met by Justin and Jimma. His header tied the game up at 2. Both teams had great chances to win the game. Augsburg keeper Labrovich made some big saves. Asende looked to go up with another goal but was denied. And he scored again, but it was shown that he had used his hand before. It helped him control the ball, so it was pretty impactful, and the game was disallowed. It stayed at 2, and that's just how the game would finish. 2-2 draw. Seemed like someone would get a winner, but the draw seemed fair. Borussia Dortmund opened up their campaign hosting Eintracht Frankfurt, and the hosts had tons of chances but couldn't score. We didn't get a goal until in the first half, but we'd see a nice one in the second. Frankfurt's Chabi was alone in the box and looked to have an easy one, but his deflection missed the net. It almost looked harder to miss the net in that situation, but that's what he did, and it was huge because just 45 seconds after that miss, 20-year-old English substitute Jamie Binu Gittins showed off his dancing skills before blasting home a beauty, giving Dortmund the lead after 72 minutes. And in stoppage time, Frankfurt were looking for an equalizer and looked dangerous entering the box, but Dortmund substitute Ben Sebaini made an unreal slide tackle to dispossess Frankfurt. If he missed that, it probably would have been a penalty. But that clean tackle sparked a counter-attack, and who else but Gittins would secure his brace in the 93rd minute, giving Dortmund the dramatic 2-0 home win to start the season. And the Englishman saved him a bit, because before the 70th minute mark, things were looking a little worrisome for Dortmund, but clutch play by the Englishman there. Frankfurt weren't really in the match, and they'll be looking to improve as they take on Hoffenheim next. Wolfsburg, they opened their season hosting Bayern Munich with their new manager, Vincent Kompany, taking the job. And the visitors would open the scoring when Sasha Boye spotted Jamal Musiala. His shot gave Bayern Munich the 1-0 lead after 19 minutes. And it stayed that way going into halftime. But just seconds into the second half, Boye would take down an attacking Wolfsburg player, resulting in a penalty for them. Lavro Meyer would step up, slot home the penalty, tying the game at 1 after 47 minutes. And Wolfsburg's magical second half continued. Less than 8 minutes after their first goal, a dreadful back pass by Bayern's Kim led to Patrick Wimmer stealing the ball. He'd show off his patience by attracting all the defenders before laying it off to Maher, who would score his second of the match, putting Wolfsburg up 2-1 after trailing 1-0 at half. Bayern cranked up their offense and got the equalizer from a corner kick. The ball entered the box and chaos ensued, with the ball ricocheted off Wolfsburg defender Jakub Kaminski into his own net, tying the game at 2 after 65 minutes. And Bayern didn't stop there. Thomas Müller showed up his strength, holding off the defender, and showed off his soft touch by finding a streaking Harry Kane. He spotted Gnabry, who found the back of the net, and Bayern were up 3-2 in the 82nd minute. Wolfsburg tried to tie up the game late, but Neuer made some big saves for Bayern. A roller coaster game for Bayern Munich new manager Vincent Kompany, but he'll take the 3-2 win in that game. Last year's Bundesliga 2 champions, FC St. Pauli, hosted Heidenheim to kick off their season. They lost manager Fabian Herzler, who joined Brighton and is having a hell of a start with them. And new manager Alexander Blessen left Royal Union Saint-Gilloise of the Belgian League to join this club, and at times the newly promoted side looked more dangerous. But despite their early efforts, the game would be tied at 0 going into halftime until the 66th minute, where we'd see the game's first goal. On a counterattack, Heidenheim's substitute, Puringer, would spot Paul Vanner, and he'd finish nicely, giving the visitors a 1-0 lead after 66 minutes. St. Pauli cranked up the pressure, but were having trouble finding a goal. And then in the 82nd minute, Heidenheim got a corner, and it was sent in with pace. And the goalie stood still as the ball went right past him. Jan Schopner at the back post, he'd tap it in to give Heidenheim the 2-0 win. So unlike some of the other leagues in Europe, not a lot of draws to open the season in Germany. Only 2 of the 9 matches ended in a draw, with 7 teams picking up victories in match day 1. And looking forward to next weekend games, there's a few that stand out. Werder Bremen hosting Borussia Dortmund should be fun. Heidenheim versus Augsburg should be another fun one. But the one I'm really looking forward to is Bayer Leverkusen, looking to keep that unbeaten run from last season, playing their first home game of the season against the tough Red Bull Leipzig team. Maybe that's the day that they finally end their Bundesliga winning streak. But from Germany to Spain, Celta Vigo was hosting Valencia to kick off match day 2 in La Liga. Celta Vigo was coming off a win over Alaves, where Valencia were coming off a loss to Barcelona. The visitors got off to a wonderful start. Vigo tried clearing it, but the ball came to Rafa Mir, who attempted an overhead kick, but his kick went right to Diego Lopez, who beat the keeper, giving Valencia the 1-0 lead just 14 minutes in. But that only lasted 9 minutes as Iago Aspas sent a perfect cross to Oscar Mingueza. He'd volley the ball into the net, and the match was tied at 1 after 23 minutes. 5 later, Mingueza returned the favor, perfectly weighted pass to Iago Aspas in stride, and he finished with class, giving Celta Vigo the 2-1 lead. In less than 15 minutes, they went from down 1-0 to up 2-1. And then with one of the last plays of the first half, Valencia got a handball in their own box, leading to a Celta Vigo penalty. Iago Aspas stepped up to take it, but he was denied by Valencia keeper Georgi Marmadishvili. The game stayed at 2-1 going into halftime, where at the 1 hour mark, Celta Vigo had a free kick. It was attempted to get cleared with a header, but it only went as far as Fran Beltran, who with one touch boomed it in from outside, curling it into the top corner, making it 3-1. And that's just how the game would end. Celta Vigo flying out the gates to start their season, while Valencia lose both of their matches to start the season. Sevilla hosted Villarreal as both teams were coming off match day 1 draws, and an absolute perfect start to the game for the visitors. A perfect ball by Alex Baena found Danjuma. He'd find the back of the net, giving Villarreal the 1-0 lead inside 2 minutes. Minutes later, Sevilla looked to equalize with a nice finish, but VAR found there was an offsides before the goal, and Villarreal kept their lead. Sevilla had more chances, and the newly signed keeper from Leganés, Diego Conde, made some outrageous saves. Late in the first half, 7 minutes in the stoppage time, Sevilla finally beat the keeper. Lucas Ocampos' long ball took a big bounce towards Luku Baeko, who unleashed a rocket that found the back of the net, tying the game at 1 with one of the last touches of the first half. The second half, the home side had some great opportunities to go ahead, but again, Conde made great saves, including an athletic save that's deflected off the crossbar from a fantastic Sal free kick. And Villarreal looked to go up in the 70th minute, but VAR found them offside that stayed tied at 1. In stoppage time, Conde made another point-blank save for Villarreal, and it was massive. As minutes later, deeper in the stoppage time, a cross into the box was popped up where Isaiah Perez would smash the ball into the net. His first goal since coming over for Real Betis. And that gave Villarreal the late game winner as they picked up the 2-1 road win. Osasuna was hosting Mallorca, both teams coming off draws in their first matches, and both keepers played well in the first half to keep it scoreless, but the home side did look more dangerous in the second half. And 10 minutes into the second half, Osasuna would go on a counterattack, and after a few blocked shots, the ball would ricochet into the path of Ruben Garcia. He'd score, giving the home team a 1-0 lead after 55 minutes. Mallorca couldn't equalize. Big 1-0 win for Osasuna. Barcelona were playing their first home game of the season, looking for their second straight win to start, while Athletic Bilbao were coming off a draw, looking to get some more points. Barcelona would go on the attack early, and a free kick in a dangerous spot led to Lamine Yamal getting the ball. He'd take his time before taking his shot, which took a big deflection and found its way into the net. Regardless, the teenager's magical year continues as that opening goal gave Barca the 1-0 lead after 24 minutes. Robert Lewandowski had so many chances in this game. He should have doubled the lead right after Yamal's goal, but shooters keep shooting, and late in the first half, the visitors were looking to equalize. Alex Berenguer would get taken down in the box by Barca. The play continued, and Lewandowski almost scored again. And after this wild scene, the refs stopped the game. VAR reviewed the foul on Berenguer, and they said, you know what, he gets a penalty. Oyhan Sanset would step up and bury his shot from the spot, tying the game at 1:42 minute. And just after the hour mark, Lewandowski had another great chance, but he was denied. In the 75th minute, he'd finally get his goal. A brilliant team build-up with Barcelona having Pedri taking a shot. Padilla made a big save, but Robert Lewandowski was the man on the spot to get the rebound. And they got the 2-1 lead after 75 minutes, and that's how they'd win. Back-to-back wins for Barcelona to start the year, while Athletic Bilbao is still searching for that first win. Newly promoted Espanyol was hosting Real Sociedad, both teams coming off tough losses to start the season. The visitors had most of the ball and always looked more dangerous of the two teams to score. Despite that, we'd get no goals in the first half, where we need to go deep into the second half for the game's first goal. After both teams had some nice chances in the second half, Real Sociedad's substitute, Take Kubu, would make a nice move to get around the defender before smashing into the net, giving the visitors the 1-0 lead after 80 minutes. They'd withstand the late Espanyol push to hold on to the 1-0 win, getting their first win of the season, while Espanyol still seeks their first goal since getting promoted. Getafe hosted Rayo Vallecano. Both teams played pretty well in their openers. Getafe drew with Athletic Bilbao, while Vallecano surprised Real Sociedad. However, this wasn't a game they'd use to exhibit the beautiful game. Both teams had the ball fairly evenly, and despite Getafe's 12 shots to Rayo Vallecano's 3, none of them were on target, so a very uneventful 0-0 draw for those clubs. Real Madrid was playing their first home match of the season, and they were hosting newly promoted Valladolid without Jude Bellingham. The Englishman picked up a muscle injury in training and should be out at least until mid-September. After a goalless first half, you could hear frustration in the Real Madrid crowd, and those groans turned into cheers less than 5 minutes into the second. Real Madrid won a dangerous corner outside the box, and Valverde would smash his shot into the net. Again, it took a big deflection before finding the back of the net, but regardless, Real Madrid led 1-0 after 50 minutes. And we wouldn't see a goal for a bit, not till the 88th minute when the hosts doubled their lead. Brahim Diaz chased down a long ball, and he'd one-touch it with finesse. He chipped the keeper to make it 2-0. Then to rub dirt in the Valladolid wounds, the 18-year-old Brazilian Endrick got subbed into the game late, and he'd show off fancy footwork before scoring his first La Liga goal, clinching the 3-0 win for Real Madrid. And they didn't even allow the visitors to register a shot on goal. A dominant performance from Real Madrid, where I can imagine Carlo Ancelotti expected even more. Leganés, last year's La Liga 2 winners, they were hosting Las Palmas after both teams finished with a draw in their opening matches. The game stayed scoreless till the 71st minute. Substitute Juan Cruz would pick up the ball near half and almost go on an unharassed run before firing a beauty from long range. That long-distance shot found the corner and gave the home side a 1-0 lead. It was his second goal in 2 games with the club. In the 85th minute, the home side doubled their lead. While Las Palmas were looking to equalize, Leganés would go on that counter where Oscar Rodriguez went on a streaking run before spotting Enrique Franquesa. He'd finished perfectly, giving Leganés a 2-0 lead after 85 minutes. Sandro Ramirez would get his second of the season, getting one back in stoppage time for Las Palmas, but it was too little too late. Leganés shows the rest of Spain that, you know what, maybe they belong in the top division, holding on to the 2-1 victory. Alaves took on Real Betis. Not a lot of action in this one. The hosts looked to score in the first half, but it was called offsides. The second half, the visitors had some great chances, but they were denied by Alaves keeper Antonio Severa. Late in the match, Alaves would go a man down when Sedler was given a straight red card, but despite going a man down, Alaves almost scored the winner. It would be Real Betis keeper Rui Silva that came up huge in the clutch, denying a late winner by Alaves, and this one would end in a tough, scoreless draw. Atletico Madrid and Girona are both involved in Champions League this season, and both teams were coming off a draw in their first match. Atletico was forcing pressure. It seemed like Girona keeper Gazanga forgot where he was. He handled the ball outside the 18-yard box, which most would thought would be a straight red, but the ref issued a yellow to the dismay of Atletico. But the ball was placed outside the box, and Antoine Griezmann would line up for the free kick. The Frenchman put pace on his low corner attempt, spotting it, and it did take a slight deflection, but he scored regardless, giving Atletico the 1-0 lead after 39 minutes. And they led going in the halftime by that margin. Early in the second half, Marco Llorente would pick the ball up and go on a scamper before finding the back of the net, doubling Atletico's lead after 48 minutes. You could probably say the Girona keeper could have done better, but it is what it is. The shot went literally right above his head. He just didn't get his hands up in time. Atletico was cruising with a 2-0 lead, and while Girona was pushing to get a goal, it left them open in the back where Barrios picked the ball up and went on a long run before finding Llorente. The goal scorer from earlier sent a perfect cross in, which found Koke. The Atletico captain gave them the 3-0 lead. It's his 16th season with the club, and he put the icing on the cake in that victory. So in Spain, they had no time for the rest. Before I could even give a breakdown of the table and how it looked after 2 games, the Liga is already going at match day 3. Villarreal hosted Celta Vigo, and if you had the Monday Blues, that game fixed them. Goals on goals on goals. After an amazing performance in the prior game, Villarreal keeper Diego Conde played pretty terrible at times. He sent a bad ball, which sent Celta Vigo scoring 12 minutes in. And then the 26 minutes, the host equalized from a corner kick, the headed ball on from Cardona at the back post, and he'd score to make it 1-1. But it stayed that way for only 5 minutes when Celta Vigo won a dangerous free kick, and from that kick, Oscar Mingueza curled the low shot around the wall, surprising the keeper, giving Vigo the 2-1 lead. And in the second half, Villarreal would equalize. On the 1 hour mark, a Cardona cross was met by the head of substitute Zerno Berry, who scored with his first touch of the match, tying it up at 2. Not even 4 minutes later, Villarreal went on the attack, and a tough low cross in the box was knocked into his own net by Yeltsin, giving Villarreal their first lead in the match at 3-2. Well, the scoring didn't end there. Mingueza's cross in the box was met by Karl Starfelt. His header tied the game up at 3. Villarreal looked at a stoppage time winner, but VAR found it offsides. And then even later in stoppage time, Villarreal went on one last run. Goal scorer Barry getting pulled down in the box. But it wasn't as simple as that. Stumbling Celta Vigo substitute Hugo Alvarez, he was falling and grabbed the jersey of Barry, which seemed to be outside of the box, but it almost looked like Barry took an extra 2 steps to drag Alvarez into the box, where he then fell down. VAR had a look, and they still gave the penalty, giving Villarreal a chance to win it with a last-second spot kick. Danny Perio stepped up, and his shot was saved by keeper Ivan Viller, but the rebound came right back to him, and he made no mistake on that, putting the goal into the back of the net, 10th minute of added time, giving them the 4-3 win for Villarreal. They remain undefeated in 3 games, while that was Celta Vigo's first loss of the season, as they've been playing very well. Following day, La Liga match day 3 continued, starting with Mallorca hosting Sevilla. Both teams had good chances. Sevilla forcing some big saves, but they had some big misses too. Mallorca forced Sevilla keeper Nyland into some difficult saves, especially near the end, but Sevilla went a man down the 89th minute when Saul picked up a straight red card, and thus a necessary foul that led to some shit talking, but regardless, it was a 0-0 draw, nothing too wild there. And the other game that went on, I was looking forward to when I saw it on the schedule. Undefeated Rayo Vallecano hosting Barcelona, who was looking for their third straight win to start the season, and Rayo Vallecano could not have asked for a better start in front of the home supporters. Jorge de Frutas spotted Unai Lopez. He tidily found the back of the net in his 200th La Liga appearance, giving the hosts a 1-0 lead after 9 minutes, and the home team had some more chances to double their lead, but it stayed 1-0 going in the half. To start the second half, Dani Olmo would get subbed into the game, making his Barcelona debut. Barca manager Hansi Flick must have said something right at halftime because the team was putting on way more pressure. Great chances to tie the game. Dani Olmo tried his shot from long range, hitting the crossbar. Then just minutes later, Rafinha would spot Pedri in the box. He calmly collected the pass, found the back of the net, tying the match at 1 after the 1 hour mark. Barcelona were rolling and looked to take the lead with a nice Lewandowski finish. However, VAR spotted the slightest of fouls by Jules Koundé, and the replay showed he stepped on the toes of the player, so the goal was disallowed. A tough break for Barca, but they didn't sit back and sulk. Less than 10 minutes after having that goal disallowed, Lamine Yamal would spot a wide-open Dani Olmo. The substitute would score in his Barcelona debut, spotting the corner in the goal and giving Barcelona their first lead in the match. Late in the match, Rayo Vallecano's Sis would go in for an aggressive tackle on Pedri. Pedri looked pretty banged up from the foul. We know the injuries Pedri's been dealing with lately, so we hope it's nothing serious. He gets subbed out right after that injury, and Barcelona would hold on for the 2-1 win, going 3 for 3 to start the season. Hansi Flick, the German manager, is doing something in Barcelona. That's why I had to rep the Barcelona colors today. But as I said, match day 3 fixtures going on throughout the midweek from today all the way through Thursday. Quick turnaround for match day 4 as they'll be going down on the weekend. So match day 3 fixtures that look good. Athletic Bilbao hosting Valencia, Girona hosting Osasuna. And of course, with Real Madrid involved, they'll be visiting Las Palmas. And I see some big weekend matchups for match day 4. Valencia hosting Villarreal, Athletic Bilbao hosting Atletico Madrid, Sevilla hosting Girona, and Real Madrid hosting Real Betis. That should be a good one. From Spain, we're going to Italy. Parma versus AC Milan, last year's Serie B champions. Parma, they were hosting AC Milan, who had a slow start in their opening match, but were able to salvage a draw. Well, Parma, they were looking for a win, but had to settle for a draw. Two different aspects there. And Parma couldn't have asked for a better start in front of their home supporters. Perfect pass by Valeri was sent to Dennis Mann, and just like in the week prior, he'd score on this one, giving Parma the 1-0 lead less than 2 minutes into the match. And the home side looked to double their lead just before halftime, but they'd smash a shot off the post before forcing Mike Magnon into a huge save. The score stayed 1-0 in the half, and in the second half, Milan was really working for that equalizer. 66th minute, they'd get it. A wonderful run and cross by Rafael Leao was met by American Christian Pulisic. Tied the game up at 1, and we get another goal in this game in the 77th minute. And again, it came from the home team. A pinpoint pass by Almqvist found Matteo Cancelleri, and he'd finish wonderfully, putting Parma up for the second time in the match as they'd lead 2-1. Milan cranked up the pressure but could not find the equalizer. A massive win for newly promoted side Parma, stunning AC Milan, who have really struggled out of the gates under new manager Paulo Fonseca. A lot of pressure and a lot of heat under his seat already. Udinese was hosting Lazio. Udinese was coming off a draw, while Lazio looked impressive in a 3-1 win over newly promoted Venezia. However, it was the hosts who started the game looking impressive. A wonderful cross by Florian Thauvin was met by Lorenzo Luca. His header put Udinese up 1-0 just 5 minutes in, and the score stayed that way till the second half, where we get another goal less than 5 minutes after a kickoff. The 49th minute, Thauvin would go on a lengthy run before finding the back of the net. The Lazio defense was really nowhere to be seen as Udinese doubled their lead. The 68th minute, Hassan Kamara would pick up his second yellow with a rough challenge, opening the door a bit for the visitors. And in stoppage time, they'd finally get their goal. Valentin Castellanos' shot was stopped by Udinese keeper Okoye, who had a really good game, but in this instance, he parried the ball right to substitute Gustav Isaacson, who tapped it in to make it 2-1 in the 95th minute. Too little, too late moment for Lazio as they dropped the game 2-1 to Udinese. Inter Milan had their home opener, looking to bounce back from a disappointing draw with Genoa. They hosted Lecce, who were skunked by Atalanta 4-0 to open their season, and things didn't look to be getting easier for Lecce. It took the defending champs less than 5 minutes to open the scoring. On an attack, DeMarco's cross into the box was headed by new arrival Mehdi Taremi. The ball came right to Darmian, whose header found the back of the net, giving Inter the early 1-0 lead. The second half, Marcus Thuram would get basically tackled in a move that looked out of an NFL game. the Lecce box, leading to an Inter penalty where the guy who never seems to miss a penalty for Inter, Hakan Calhanoglu, would step up and knock his in from the spot, giving them the 2-0 lead in the 70th minute, and that's how they'd hold on, winning 2-0. They probably would have wished for more goals, but a win's a win. Lecce, rough start for the season for them. Losers of both games by a combined score of 6-0 to start their season. Monza hosted Genoa as both teams are coming off a draw. Monza looked more likely to score, and in the first half of stoppage time, Daniel Maldini found the back of the net. However, there was an offsides on the play. VAR spotted, so it was disallowed. Moments later, Genoa's Stefano Sabelli would spot Pinamonti with a cross, and his header found the back of the net. Genoa took the 1-0 lead, and they take the 1-0 road win as they remain unbeaten in Serie A play so far. Fiorentina hosted Venezia, and both teams had some wonderful chances, but the real heroes of this game were the keepers. Fiorentina's Pietro Terracciano, Venezia's Jesse Gironin both made huge saves, and it was good for them to keep a clean sheet as this game ended 0-0. Torino hosted Atalanta, disappointed how they gave up a 2-goal lead to settle for a draw with Milan, while Atalanta easily cruised to that 4-0 win over Lecce I mentioned. It'd be the visitors who opened the scoring in this one. The 26th minute, a wonderful cross in the box by David Zappacosta was met by Matteo Retegui, and his header found the back of the net. His third goal in 2 games gave Atalanta a 1-0 lead. But it took less than 5 minutes for Torino to respond. A nice pass by Zapata found Ivan Ilic, who composed himself for finding the back of the net, tying the game at 1 after 31 minutes. Early in the second half, Torino would send a long ball down the pitch, where it was chased down by goal scorer Ilic, who set up Zapata. His tough shot was denied by the keeper, but the rebound came right to Shea Adams, who found the back of the net, giving Torino the 2-1 lead after being down 1-0 earlier in the match. It was the Englishman's first start with the club, and he had come off the bench in his first match. And it was his first in Serie A, after spending the last 5 seasons with Southampton. That looked to have clinched the game, but Atalanta was still hungry for an equalizer, and in stoppage time they were on the attack and went down softly in the box. The ref didn't give a penalty, but VAR had a look and called the official to the monitor, and it didn't take long for the ref to overturn the decision, giving the stoppage time penalty chance to Atalanta. Mario Pasalic would step up looking for his 50th career Serie A goal, but his goal was denied by Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. His big save kept the home side up 2-1. That would seal the victory for Torino. You could sense the tension as they were worried. They give up another late lead, but this time they held on for the win. Big win for Torino, who's looked really good coming out of the gates. Napoli was hosting Bologna and looking to avenge a 3-0 beating they took by Verona in their opening match, and Bologna was coming off a draw where they felt they should have won. The game looked like it was going in the halftime tied at 0, but then in the first half stoppage time, Napoli went on the attack, and a beautiful one-touch chip pass by Kvaratskhelia fell right into the path of a streaking Giovanni Di Lorenzo. The right back found the back of the net, scoring Napoli's first goal of the new campaign and gave them a 1-0 lead in the halftime. Score stayed that way until the 75th minute, where Kvaratskhelia would add a goal to go with his assist, going on a lengthy run before his shot picked up a deflection before finding the net, doubling Napoli's lead at 2-0. In the 4th minute of stoppage time, Napoli put the icing on the cake, a pair of substitutes coming together. David Neres, who was barely on the pitch, found Giovanni Simeone, whose deflected shot found the back of the net. Big 3-0 win for Napoli. Roma took on Empoli, and late in the first half, just for the 45-minute mark, Empoli went on the attack. Giuseppe Pizzella was knocked on slightly by striker Colombo, right into the path of Giassi. He had enough on the ball to find the back of the net, giving Empoli the 1-0 lead going to the break. Early in the second half, Roma would strike the crossbar, and then they hit the other post on the rebound. Empoli still holding on to that 1-0 lead, and that was big, as not long later, Empoli would go on a counter-attack, fueled by substitutes. Sebastiano Esposito, he'd stop near the box and exhibit some really fancy footwork before getting taken out. The ref would point at the spot, and Empoli would get awarded a penalty. Lorenzo Colombo would step up and smash the penalty in the back of the net, doubling Empoli's lead after 61 minutes. As the game went on, Roma really ramped up the pressure. It would take a combination of subs to get them on the board. The 80th minute, Thomas Baldanzi's cross was met by the head of Eldar Shomurodov, and as his header found the back of the net, cutting into the lead as Empoli led 2-1. Immediately after, Roma got more chances, and it was amazing how the ball just didn't go in. Empoli barely held on, but held on they did, winning 2-1. Big win for Empoli, as it was their first time beating Roma at the Stadio Olimpico. Historic moment for Empoli, while Roma remained winless in their first 2 matches to start the year. Cagliari was hosting newly promoted Como, and the first half seemed fairly even. Towards the end of the first half, Como had a throw-in deep in their own end, and the ball got intercepted, where Cagliari started to maneuver their attack. A ball was floated into the box, where Lupetto headed it on to Piccoli. His last touch beat the keeper, giving the hosts a 1-0 lead in the 44th minute. They take that lead into the halftime break, where Cesc Fabregas must have said something to his team, who cranked it up in the second half. They got a corner kick, and from that kick, Desenya would head the ball into the path of streaking Catron. He beat the defender to the ball and smashed into the net, tying the game at 1 after 53 minutes. Both teams had more chances to get the win, but no one took it, and that match ended in a 1-1 draw. Verona hosted Juventus as both clubs were coming off wins in their opening match. Juventus had their foot on the gas pedal from the first kick. Verona had the ball in their own end from a throw-in where Juventus would steal possession, and Yildiz laid a perfectly weighted pass to Dusan Vlahovic. He finished clinically, giving Juventus the 1-0 lead after 28 minutes. Score looked to stay that way, and as we got closer to halftime, Juventus picked the ball up, going on a counter-attack, where Samuel Mangula had the ball on the wing and sent a floating cross into the box, where Nicolo Savonia made his first start with the club, and his looping header found its way into the net. Vlahovic had a chance to steal the goal, but missed it, and it belonged to Savonia. Juventus took that 2-0 lead and led into halftime by that same number. Mangola would go on another run in the second half before getting taken down in the box, where Vlahovic would step up and nail the spot kick, scoring his brace and giving Juventus the 3-0 lead, which is what they'd win by, beating Verona 3-0. So after 2 matches in Serie A, Juventus are the only club to have won both their opening matches. They sit atop the league. There's a 6-team group behind them of teams that remain undefeated to start the season with a win and a draw, including last year's champions Inter Milan, Torino, Genoa, last season's Serie B champions Parma, Udinese, and surprisingly Empoli. Looking ahead to match day 3, some really good games to get excited about. Inter Milan hosting Atalanta, that should be a doozy. Bologna Empoli should be good. And 2 games unfortunately on at the exact same time Saturday. Lazio hosting AC Milan and Napoli hosting Parma. Then what I think the biggest game of the weekend on Sunday with Juventus hosting Roma. Roma still looking for their first win, while Juventus looking to keep that winning streak going. Okay, so we leave Italy. We're going to France, where PSG hosted Montpellier. And, PSG looked to start life without Kylian Mbappe pretty well, and they hosted Montpellier, and this was all PSG right from the start. PSG scored early, and I have 4 minutes in. Bradley Barcola, he'd show off his speed before smashing his shot home. 1-0. Then in the 24th minute, lovely PSG passing left Marco Asensio in a good spot. He beat the keeper to go up 2-0. And that'd be it for first half scoring, but it wouldn't take long into the second to see the game's third goal. In the 53rd minute, Ousmane Dembele would perfectly pass it to Barcola, who scored his second of the match, making it 3-0. Then not even 5 minutes after that, we'd see another goal. Nuno Mendes, his cross was met by Hakimi, and the Moroccans' one-touch goal made it 4-0. The unraveling was on full display for Montpellier, as just 2 minutes after that goal, PSG would get a fifth. 18-year-old Frenchman Warren Zaire-Emery embarrassed the defender by putting it between his legs and then smashing it home. That nutmeg added to another goal, and they led 5-0 at the 1 hour mark. Then the 82nd minute, South Korean Lee Kang-in would add a 6th goal. His low shot spotted the corner of the net and completed the beatdown. Huge 6-0 win for PSG. Montpellier forced PSG keeper Donnarumma into a few big saves, but he didn't have to put too much in to get the clean sheet in that one. Lyon was playing their first home match of the season, and we're looking to bounce back from that opening weekend defeat, the opening 3-0 defeat to Bayern. Then they did also have to return to their captain, Alexander Lacazette. Monaco was looking for back-to-back wins to start the season, and they definitely looked the more dangerous of the two teams. But despite the dominant first half, we'd go into halftime with no goals. Second half, we'd get the game's first goal. Monaco's Akluichi found 19-year-old Moroccan Ben Seguir, and the teenager would get the ball in traffic before finishing nicely, putting Monaco up 1-0 after 65 minutes. Lyon didn't respond well, and Monaco continued to control the ball. They doubled their lead in the 80th minute when substitute Ouattara put in a low cross that was tapped in by Lamine Camara. If Camara had missed, teammate George Ilikiana was right there behind him. Atrocious defending by the home side. I mean, 2 guys had a chance to get a goal. It was pretty bad. In stoppage time, goal scorer Camara would pick up his second yellow card in 3 minutes and see red. His late dismissal had minimal impact on the game, but it will hurt the chances of the goal scorer playing next game as he's suspended now. But regardless, big 2-0 win for Monaco, while Lyon, they're starting this season much like last year. Hopefully they don't start as disastrous as last year's went, but 2 games, 2 losses, and they're outscored 5-0. Not ideal. Lille were hosting newly promoted Angers, and Lille won their opening match on the road while Angers lost theirs. The hosts were always looking the more dangerous, and in the 34th minute, that they opened up with a goal. A nice little 1-2 between Thomas Meunier and Haraldson ended with Meunier finding the bottom corner, and Lille led 1-0. Excuse me. Score stayed that way until stoppage time. Angers were really looking for the equalizer, but lost the ball and they were left open in the back. Lille went on the counterattack with Mohamed Bayo finding the back of the net, clinching the 2-0 win. Great start for Lille to start the season, back-to-back 2-0 wins, while Angers are still looking for their first League One win since promotion. Newly promoted Saint Etienne lost a close one to Monaco in their opening match, while Le Havre faced the wrath of PSG, who caught fire late and won 4-1 in that match. Saint Etienne's fans were packed in the stadium for the team's home debut and their return to the French top division. Home side had some wonderful chances to open the scoring, but just couldn't do it. Those missed chances ended up being pretty big, as Saint Etienne substitute Dennis Appiah would just stumble while defending and take down an attacking player. It's pretty outrageous. It resulted in a penalty, and Abdoulaye Touré would score from the spot with a cheeky chip to make it 1-0 Le Havre after 57 minutes. 10 minutes later, the visitors doubled their lead. 22-year-old captain Sangetti would score a header from a corner kick to make it 2-0. Saint Etienne pushed for that goal, but they just never got it. Le Havre's Arthur Desmas picked up the clean sheet in the road win. Lens were hosting Brestois, and Lens were coming off a 1-0 win over Angers, while Brest were coming off that disastrous 5-1 shellacking they took to Marseille. Jean Chavez would score his first goal with Lens in the 19th minute. He found the back of the net with a neat finish in close range to give the home side an early 1-0 lead. Excuse me. Then just before halftime, a Lens cross with pace ricocheted off former Lens player Julien Le Cardinal into his own net. That own goal gave Lens a 2-0 lead after 45 minutes. In the late stages of the game, Lens player Machado went in for an aggressive tackle. He'd harshly foul the Brest player and get a straight red card. His 88th minute dismissal didn't impact the game much at all. Lens held on for that 2-0 win. 2 straight victories to start the season for the Will Still era in Lens. The former football manager coaching prodigy is off to a great start. Brest, on the other hand, have not looked very good to start the season. They've lost both games by a score of 7-1 combined. I know this team finished third in Ligue 1 last season, and they'll be playing Champions League this year, but they've got to turn things around quickly and work on fixing shit right now. Strasbourg was hosting a Rennes team that came off for that big win in Lyon. Be the home team that opened the scoring in this match. A corner kick led to the ball falling for 20-year-old Brazilian Andre Santos, and he'd find the back of the net, and Strasbourg led 1-0 after 23 minutes. Strasbourg would double their lead early in the halftime. Not even 3 minutes into the second half, a frenzy in the box led to Emmanuel Emega scoring, doubling the host lead after 48 minutes. Then less than 9 minutes later, Rennes got one back. Ludovic Blast would take a shot, but he whiffed on it, Charlie Brown style, like someone moved the ball. But as Strasbourg went to clear it, the ball fell back to him, and he wasn't whiffing twice. He'd smashed that into the back of the net, making it 2-1 after 57 minutes. But late in the match, Strasbourg went on the attack, and back was crossed into the box, was hit into his own goal by Christopher Wu. That mishap made it 3-1 and clinched the win for Strasbourg. Nantes was hosting last season's Ligue 2 champions, Auxerre. Both teams looking for their first win in the new season. The home side, Nantes, would get their opener in the 14th minute. Their first goal of the season came from Moses Simon. He'd cut inside and his deflected shot would go in. To be fair, the keeper made a terrible effort at it. Speaking of whiffing, he whiffed on that. Regardless, it was Simon's first goal since coming back from a nasty broken leg injury, so good to see him back on the pitch. And Nantes led 1-0. Just before halftime, Auxerre almost equalized when Canadian Theo Baer's header from a corner forced a very athletic save out of Nantes keeper Lafont. Early in the second half, Lafont made another crazy save to keep Auxerre off the score sheet. And things didn't get any easier for the visitors when midfielder Onewu would go in for an aggressive challenge, basically stomping on the Nantes player's leg, resulting in a direct card, and Auxerre would finish the match a man down. In stoppage time, Nantes would put on icing on the cake with a very late goal. 17-year-old substitute Hirba Girassi, He was only on the pitch a few minutes, and he picked the ball up near the halfway line, going a lengthy run, shaking off defenders before stopping on a dime, leaving another defender sliding by before scoring. What a goal for a 17-year-old for your first goal. Wow, amazing, stunning goal. Easily one of the goals of the weekend, and that late match magic was enough to secure a 2-0 win for Nons. I have to give credit to Lafont. He picked up his second clean sheet in as many games, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Garassi, the 17-year-old, can do this season. That goal, very impressive debut. Hopefully it can go uphill from there. Nice hosted Toulouse as they were looking to bounce back from a loss in their first game. We'd see no goals in the first half, but we'd get an early one in the second. Canadian Moise Bombito was making his first start with Nice, and he started a nice attack that featured wonderful passing that ended with Jonathan Klaus spotting the corner of the net, giving the host a 1-0 lead after 53 minutes, and it stayed that way until the 73rd minute. Toulouse would tie the game back up when Xavi Babica would get the ball back post and find the back of the net. And that's how the game would finish, 1-1. Marseille was hosting Reims and feeling pretty good after winning their first match against Brest 5-1, while Reims were coming off a tough 2-0 loss to Lille. It would be the host that kept on rolling. Quentin Merlin would send a low cross into the path of Herriot. The midfielder found the back of the net, giving Marseille the 1-0 lead 25 minutes in. And the score stayed that way until early in the second half. Reims would get a corner kick, and it was initially attempted to get cleared, but it only went as far as Sergio Hakimi. The Spanish left back would hit his shot cleanly into the back of the net, tying the game after 51 minutes. Not even 4 minutes later, 20-year-old Ivorian Yaya Fofana would go on a lengthy run down the wing. He'd cut inside, embarrassing a Marseille defender before blasting his shot into the net. His first goal with the club on his first start. And in 4 minutes, Reims went from being down 1-0 to being up 2-1. In the 71st minute, Merlin would cut in and try a shot, which was straight at Reims keeper Diouf. But instead of catching the ball, he knocked it right into the path of Mason Greenwood. He easily had the ball in the open net, tying the game at 2 after 71 minutes. The Englishman's third goal in 2 games with Marseille. He's had a great start for them. And that's how the match would end. Despite Marseille having 66% of the ball, they couldn't find the winner. And there was a tough match that ended in a 2-2 draw. So after 2 matches played in the French top division, we have 4 teams that have won both of their opening matches. PSG sit atop the league with that 9-goal difference in 2 games. It's crazy. Really not missing Kylian Mbappe yet. Excuse me. Yet tied with them on points include Lille, Monaco, and Lens. 3 teams that remain undefeated with a win and draw include Marseille, Strasbourg, and Nantes. Looking ahead to match day 3, the opening game on Friday, August 30th, that's a juicy one. Lyon hosting Strasbourg. Lyon have just looked awful to start this campaign, and they'll be hosting an unbeaten Strasbourg team, so that could be tough. If Lyon come out playing like they have in the first 2 games, Strasbourg is going to lay the shit to them. Excited to see that Monaco versus Lens matchup as well. Monaco have looked really good to start the season, and it's looking like Will Still is working his magic with Lens. That should be really fun. With the marquee game of the weekend for me, Sunday, Lille hosting PSG. 2 teams that have both won their opening matches, and they'll be hungry for a win in this one. Ultimate perfect world here. I'm hoping Canadian Jonathan David scores a late winner on PSG and does some fancy taunting, I guess. But that'd be cool to see. I'm loving how many Canadians are in Liga right now. It's awesome. And before I run away from European footy, I have to talk about the UEFA Champions League. Change the music a bit, but don't worry. The Champions is still there. They're keeping that part. Second leg of the playoffs going on this week. A big game was between Turkish side Galatasaray and Swiss side Young Boys. The visitors had a 3-2 aggregate lead in this one, and they'd win 1-0, sending Galatasaray home, who'd be kicking themselves, be missing out in the Champions League. Sparta Praha beat Malmo to eliminate the Swedish club. Salzburg drew with Dynamo Kiev, but won on aggregate. The before-mentioned Lille of the French league have a 2-goal advantage on aggregate as they go on the road to take on Slavia Praha. That's always a tough place to play, so we'll see how that goes. And that game, it's pretty close to their weekend matchup with PSG, so we'll see how Lille comes out of that one. 3 other matches will go on, the Champions League qualifiers, to see who we get in our group pool. After those fixtures wrap up today, the Champions League draw will be held Thursday, August 29th, and we'll get a look at who's in what group. It should be very interesting. We leave the footy pitch and we go to the baseball diamond, and we'll look up to the sky. Is that a bird, a plane? Oh, it's a bird. It's a Blue Jay. We'll talk Blue Jays. The Blue Jays hosted the Los Angeles Angels in a 4-game series, hoping to play as well as they had in their series last time against the Angels. And before the game, there was news that the Angels gave an extension to GM Perry Minasian. I thought that was interesting considering they lost Ohtani last year. The team's been in the bottom of the AL West most of the season, but hey, give the guy his money, I guess. Good on him. In the opening game of the series, the Jays exploded for 5 runs in the second inning, which included a 2-run Ernie Clement home run, taking that lead all the way to the ninth, where the Jays had a bit of a scare when Nico Cavadas hit a 3-run home run off Blue Jays' Tommy Nance to make it 5-3. The Jays held on to win 5-3 and take that opening series win. The second game be the Angels, who got some early runs. Anthony Rendon will get an RBI double, followed by Joe Adell's 2-run double and a Taylor Ward single RBI. And like that, the Angels are up 4-0 after 2 innings. But in the fourth, Alejandro Kirk and Ernie Clement would each get an RBI to cut the lead in half. Kirk kept his bat going. A lot of K's in there. Kept his bat going in the sixth inning when he'd get another RBI to make it 4-3. Then in the ninth inning, Joey Loperfido hitting a solo bomb to tie it up at 4. And the very next hitter, Addison Barger, he went yard as well. First ever walk-off home run. Back-to-back jacks, giving the Jays a 5-4 win in the ninth. Clutch hitting saved the win and got them their second win over the Angels. Third game, this was about pitching, except the Jays did get to Angels starter Carson Fulmer early. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kept his hot hitting going. RBI double. That was followed by Loperfido hitting an RBI double, and the Jays had a 2-0 lead after 1 inning. From there, Fulmer calmed down, striking out 8 in his 6th inning outing, pitching very well. But when Fulmer came out, Guerrero Jr. hit a solo home run in the 8th to give the Jays a 3-0 lead. While on the pitching staff for the Blue Jays, starter Bowden Francis was having himself a night. He's 3 outs away from a no-hitter entering the 9th inning when Taylor Ward took him yard for a solo home run to end those hopes. Chad Green would then come in the game and get the save, and in the 3-1 win, the Jays took it. It was really good there. Bowden Francis, like I said, 8 innings strong, 1 hit, 1 earned run, walked 3, struck out 12. Hell of an outing for him. And then the Angels and Blue Jays wrapped up their series on that Sunday, and with the game tied at 1 after 4 innings, the Jays' bats exploded. Vladdy Jr., 2 RBIs. Alejandro Kirk hitting his great hitting of late, 3 RBIs. 2-run home run for Kirk. Addison Barger hit another 2-run home run. Kevin Gausman pitched great. 7 innings strong, striking out 10, allowing 2 hits and an earned run. Another Blue Jays sweep of the Angels. If they could just play the Angels all year, they'd be looking pretty good. The Blue Jays then flew into Boston for some unfinished business with the Red Sox. Before they'd start their 4-game series with the Sox, they'd have to finish off a game from June 26th. With that being said, we'd see a baseball first, which is hard to do considering how old baseball is and all the stats they have. But Red Sox catcher Danny Jansen was playing for the Blue Jays in that game. He obviously has been traded since and suited up for the Red Sox in this one, becoming the first player to suit up for both teams in the same game. Even wilder, he caught for the at-bat that he himself started for Toronto and had to be pitch hit for. You can't make this up. In the game, it stayed scoreless till the 7th inning when Toronto's George Springer hit a solo bomb. The following inning, Guerrero Jr. would keep his hot streak going, bringing 2 home with a double. Barger would bring Vladdy Jr. home, make it 4-0. Jarren Duran made things interesting, hitting a solo bomb in the bottom of that inning. But in the 9th, Chad Green would strike out. Who else but Danny Jansen to secure the 4-1 Jays win. History made and a big Jays win. Talk about a good day. That made the night game a little interesting as well, where Jose Barrios was looking good for the Jays, although he did give up an RBI single to Tristan Casas in the 3rd inning, giving the Sox an early 1-0 lead. But in the 5th inning, the Jays, they have these run explosions, a 5-run explosion with a 3-run George Springer home run, which was followed by an Addison Barger RBI single and an Ernie Clement RBI double. And from there, it went from 1-0 to 5-1 Jays. Like I said, Jose Barrios was rolling, only giving up 1 run. But in the 8th, Duran took Barrios yard with a 2-run blast to cut the lead to 5-3. Duran was just the only guy really hitting well against the Jays. And in the 9th inning, the Red Sox fielding was just bad. An error led to Kirk getting on base and Vladdy Jr. getting home, which was followed by a Spencer Horwitz RBI double. Brendan Little would come in to finish the game for the Jays, and they took the big 7-3 win. 2 games against the Sox, 2 wins. For yesterday's matchup in Fenway, the Jays were looking to extend their 7-game winning streak. It looked like Duran was going to do his best for Boston to end that streak, though, throwing out Vladdy in the 1st, and then the bottom of that inning hitting a solo bomb off Yariel Rodriguez to take a 1-0 lead. That was followed by a Matsusaka Yoshida 2-run single to make it 3-0 in the first inning. In the third, Barger would get the Jays on the board with a sac fly, but that'd get canceled out by David Hamilton's RBI single, Tristan Casas RBI double, and a Wilyer Abreu RBI single. Suddenly, it was 6-1 Boston. Not the best outing for Rodriguez, giving up 6 runs in his start. But the next inning, Will Wagner, he'd get a nice little history there, hitting his first career home run, cutting the lead to 6-2. Then in the ninth inning, Dalton Varsho hit a solo bomb to make it 6-3. But Red Sox closer, Kenley Jansen, you might remember him from last week's Jersey mention, 74. He'd come in and seal the win for Boston, giving them the 6-3 win as they take one from the Jays. The Jays play the Red Sox today before wrapping up the series tomorrow. Then the Blue Jays head to Minnesota for a 3-game series with the Twins over the weekend. Then they jump into some interleague play with the NL East next week. So with all this Blue Jays talk, we got to take a deeper dive in their division, the American League East. Sitting atop the division, the New York Yankees. They had an interesting interleague series over the weekend with the Rockies. They won 2 of 3. Of course, losing on Saturday, ruining my parlay the one day I put on the Yankees there. Again, I don't encourage betting, but come on. The Yankees wrapped that series up on Sunday, beating the Rockies 10-3. But we saw some cool moments in that one. Aaron Judge hit his 50th home run in that game, which is the 3rd time he's hit the half-century mark in a season. Becoming just the 5th Major League Baseball player to do so, joining the likes of Babe Ruth, former Yankee, did it 4 times. Mark McGwire 4 times, Sammy Sosa 4 times, and Alex Rodriguez 3 times. And I was like, wait, how did Barry Bonds do this? So, as we do on the Sports and Shorts of Sorts podcast, we fact-checked, and Bonds only hit over 50 home runs once in his career, and that was in 2001 when he set the home run single-season record of 73. Craziness, as I thought the home run king had done it more. But anyway, back to the Rockies-Yankees game. You'd see a crazy scene in the 5th inning. Giancarlo Stanton got a hit, but his bat broke, and the barrel of the bat struck the home umpire, Nick Marley, right in the neck. It was brutal. You'd have to leave the game with a concussion. And then that even more craziness to the game, we'd see back-to-back-to-back jacks. First, Juan Soto hit a solo bomb. Aaron Judge hit his 2nd of the game and 51st on the season, followed by Giancarlo Stanton's bomb. The Yankees ending to hit up 5 home runs in the game as they cruise to a 10-3 win with Marcus Stroman pitching well and getting the win in that one. But man, the Yankees show you what they can do when they turn it up. Back-to-back-to-back. Damn. Although they did just drop a game to the Nationals last night, they wrapped that series in American capital today. The Baltimore Orioles just 1 game back in the Yankees in the division. They split a tough one with the Astros and kicked off their 3-game series with the Dodgers yesterday by going out west and beating them. They have 2 more games with the Dodgers before heading to Colorado to take on the Rockies. The Red Sox have fallen a bit back in the division, 9.5 games back of the Yankees, getting swept by the Diamondbacks and then losing 2 straight to the Jays before that win last night. And after the Red Sox wrapped the series up with Toronto, they head to Detroit. And Tampa Bay, the Rays are at 500, just 2 games back of the Red Sox in the division. And the Jays' recent trend of winning has them sneaking up on Tampa Bay from the basement of the division, just 2 games back. More importantly, I think they're going to be shifting their eyes to the wild card race, which was something I don't think they would have been thinking a bit ago. But we'll leave the AL East, go to the AL Central. The division's been really close at the top. Currently, there's a tie amongst the leaders. The Kansas City Royals have been playing great against their rivals, winning 3 straight over the Cleveland Guardians to end up evening them up on division lead. Today, Kansas City wraps up that 4-game series with Cleveland. If they sweep Cleveland, they'll take sole division of the lead. They would then play a tough series in Houston against the Astros over the weekend, before facing off with the Guardians again next week in a 3-game series. Those Guardians will be looking to avoid that sweep to try to take the division lead again today. They stay at home to host the Pirates over the weekend before facing off with the Royals, like I said. And don't forget about the Minnesota Twins. They're 2 games behind the division leaders, and they'll be looking to avoid a 4-game losing streak and a sweep by the Braves. They wrapped that series up today before hosting the Jays over the weekend, as I mentioned. The Detroit Tigers have been on fire lately. They look like sellers at the trade deadline, but hey, maybe selling became winning here. Now they're finding themselves in the thick of it for the wild card spot, and they can sneak into the playoffs. The Chicago White Sox are in the basement of the division, only team with over 100 losses, sitting at 31-101. Brutal season for them, just keeps getting brutaler. Is that a word? Probably not. More brutal. We'll go with that. Wrapping up the American League, we go out west, leading the division, the Houston Astros. They'll be looking to avoid a sweep by the hand of the Phillies today before hosting the Kansas City Royals, as I just mentioned. They have a 3.5 game lead over the second place Mariners, and Seattle will be finishing the season with Dan Wilson at the helm. For the recording of last week's episode, the Mariners fired manager Scott Survey and missed his 9th season with the club. The Mariners will be looking to take the rubber match against the Tampa Bay Rays. They will then face off some divisional foes, facing off with the Angels over the weekend before tackling the Athletics to start next week. The Rangers haven't been playing too great in Texas, and they sit 9.5 games back in the division. Pretty far back in the wild card, too, and last year's World Series champions look like they might not even make it to the postseason this year. The Athletics have crawled out of the basement of the division, sitting 13 games back of the division lead, while the Angels have really struggled, especially against Toronto in that series. They're now losers of 9 of their last 10, finding themselves in the basement of the American League West. Oh, and did I mention they just re-signed their GM? Yikes. We'll stay west, but we'll go to the National League, starting with the division-leading Dodgers. Their lead has stayed about the same as last episode because a lot of the teams out in the NL West are playing pretty good. They split a series with the Rays before going to their current series with Baltimore. In that series with Tampa Bay, we got to witness Shohei Ohtani do Shohei Ohtani things. He entered the 40-40 club with a walk-off grand slam. Now the big talk is whether Ohtani will become the first player to go 50-50. And when I'm saying this, I'm referring to home runs and stolen bases. 5 other players in the 40-40 club include Jose Canseco, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Alfonso Soriano, and most recently, Ronald Acuna. I mentioned how the Orioles took that first game against the Dodgers. The Dodgers have 2 more games with Baltimore before visiting division rivals Arizona for a 4-game series. And with Arizona and San Diego just 3 games behind the Dodgers, there is potential for lots of shuffling for the division crown. The Dodgers and Diamondback series, that'll have a big impact on things. The Padres are playing great. They took 2 or 3 against the Mets, and they won the first 2 of their 4-game series against St. Louis. They're going to be hoping to keep that great play up in Tampa Bay over the weekend. San Francisco Giants are a little further back in the division, just 1 game over 500, but it is a tough division, and they'll be having their eyes on a wild card spot. Colorado Rockies are in the basement of that tough NL West, and no real sign of them making any late season runs. We leave the West for the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers are still cruising with the division lead. They have a big lead over the tight pack behind them, with the Brewers sitting atop the division. That group behind them is only separated by a few games. Chicago Cubs have been playing some good baseball and find themselves 9 games back of the Brewers, but have moved into the wild card race. They'll be looking for a sweep over the Pirates today in Pittsburgh before heading to Washington to take on the Nationals. Game and a half back of the Cubs are the Cardinals, who are looking to avoid a sweep against the Padres. They then head to New York to take on the Yankees this weekend, while the Cincinnati Reds are just a few games behind the Cardinals. And in the basement of the division are the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are just a game behind the Reds. So 2nd to 5th is separated by only 4.5 games. But like I said, they're so far back in Milwaukee, it doesn't really matter that much, I guess. Wrapping up the division check-ins, we go with the National League East, where the Philadelphia Phillies still lead the division, having a 6-game advantage, and they're looking to sweep the Astros, as I mentioned earlier. They then have a 4-game series with their rivals from Atlanta, the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets, still battling behind the Phillies in the division. As of now, the Braves have a 3-game edge and actually hold on to that last wildcard spot in the NL. Atlanta will be looking to sweep Minnesota today before heading to Philly for that 4-game series. That should be a good one. The Phillies have that lead in the division, but if Atlanta could make up some ground there, we could have a tighter race to end the year here. The Mets won the opening game of their series with the Diamondbacks, and they have 2 more matchups before they head to Chicago for a favorable matchup with the White Sox. The Miami Marlins are still marlining, sitting in the basement of the NL East in a forgettable season for them. So lots of good baseball as we come up near the end of the season. As August ends and playoff baseball's in sight, it's getting wild. And I'll jump to tennis here with the U.S. Open now in full swing at Flushing Meadows, New York. There has been some talk in the tennis world, and just like last episode, not a lot of the tennis talk is good. For instance, the Winston-Salem Open, leading up to the U.S. Open, American Alex Michelson was taking on Italian Lorenzo Sonego. During the first set, after losing a point on his serve, Mitchelson took a ball out of his pocket, smashed it into the crowd, hitting someone, striking him right in the face. He immediately clutched his face and apologized profusely, but surprisingly, he was just giving a warning, not a default, which is very different considering the decisions in the past. Like Canadian tennis player Denis Shapovalov, who he spoke out about this, saying it's not, he should have been defaulted. But anyway, Shapovalov, he was defaulted during a match where he swore at a spectator for heckling him. If that one's not too close, how about this one for a parallel? In the 2021 U.S. Open, Novak Djokovic accidentally hit a line person in the throat when he tried to return the ball to them. He was automatically disqualified from the match. So it did seem strange that they let Mitchelson finish this one. Maybe because he's American, it was in the States. I don't know. But Karma and Sonego seemed to take hold of the situation as the Italian would go on to beat Mitchelson in straight sets. So now we'll go back to the last Grand Slam of the calendar year, the U.S. Open. There already been some great scenes in the first few matches. Not so many if you're a Canadian fan. The women's side, Leylah Fernandez was upset by Anastasia Potapova. Bianca Andreescu, who's won the U.S. Open before, had one hell of a first-round match with Jasmine Pellini. It went 3 sets, but the Italian kept her magical summer going by winning. On the men's side, the before-mentioned Denis Shapovalov was upset by Dutch player Botic van der Zandschulp. I probably butchered that name. I haven't heard much of that tennis player. But anyway, he knocked out the Canadian in straight sets. Even more surprising, especially after that great Olympic run he had, Felix Auger-Aliassime lost in 3 sets to Jakub Mensik. Did not expect that. Out of all these great tennis players, who'd have thought Gabriel Diallo of Montreal would be the one advancing to the second round? He beat Munar of Spain in 4 sets to advance, so good on him carrying the flag. Another upset on the men's side, number 11 in the world, Stefanos Tsitsipas was upset by Thanasi Kokkinakis in 4 sets. We saw Daniel Evans of Great Britain come back to upset Chachanov, beating the number 23 player in the world in a U.S. Open new record, 5 hours and 35 minutes. That's a long match. It's great to see Naomi Osaka back on the tennis court. She beat number 10 ranked player in the world, Yelena Ostapenko, in straight sets. You can see the emotion on her face as she's worked hard to get back into this moment, and she took advantage of it. And another upset on the women's side in the Battle of Americans, number 11 ranked player in the world, Danielle Collins, lost in 3 sets to Carlene Dolehide. This tournament's so fun, one of my favorites to watch. I think the time difference helps because it's in North America, so we'll see what happens in this crazy tournament. F1, we had the Dutch Grand Prix going on after our summer break, and we wonder who would come in with a little rust, and we'd see some surprises in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton not making it out of Q2, which was surprising because he had such a great finish going into the break, winning 2 out of 3 races. And it looked like Dutch driver Max Verstappen was going to get his 4th consecutive pole at his home race, but McLaren's Lando Norris came in a little quicker, ending Max's home pole streak, achieving his 4th pole of his career in F1. So those two are on the front row with Lando's teammate Oscar Piastri and Mercedes' George Russell behind them. Third row was Max's teammate Sergio Perez and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. But you have to give credit for Williams, Alex Albon. Man, this guy, Williams isn't known for having a great car this year, and this dude's always qualifying pretty well. You got to give him a shout out. So after that qualifying, that brought us to a race, which kind of lacked excitement, I got to say. We'd see someone in orange get to the front and never let go. And I'm not talking about Dutchman Max Verstappen, his orange fans. I'm talking about an orange car driver, McLaren's Lando Norris. The pole sitter lost the lead briefly, but he got it back and never looked back, cruising to an easy Dutch Grand Prix win. 22 seconds ahead of second place Max Verstappen. The first time someone other than Max in the last few years has won a Grand Prix by more than 20 seconds. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc raced well and finished 3rd to round out the podium. The teammates of the 3 drivers I mentioned all finished below them. Lando's McLaren teammate Piastri finished 4th. Leclerc's teammate Carlos Sainz finished 5th. And Max's Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez finished 6th. Behind them were a pair of Mercedes in 7th and 8th with Russell and Hamilton. So we look at the standings, and Max isn't as running away with it like he was last season. He's got 295 points, which is still a big lead over Lando in 225, but things could maybe get interesting down the stretch. But the tighter race is the constructor standings. Red Bull with 434 points, but McLaren are just 30 behind them at 404. And Ferrari's not out of this yet either. They sit in 3rd with 370. And we don't get a long wait for our next race. It's going down this upcoming Sunday in Italy for the Italian Grand Prix. And some big news coming out for that race. Williams, I just mentioned Alex Albon and how well he's been doing. Their other driver, American driver Logan Sargent, has not been doing well. We knew he wouldn't be suiting up next season, but they're like, fuck it, you out. They're dropping him now, replacing him with 21-year-old Argentine Franco Colapino. Be interesting to see what the youngster can do this weekend in Italy. Quick mention of college football. We had some games kick off this past weekend, but the biggest of the bunch, Florida State taking on Georgia Tech in Ireland, of all places. Pretty cool scene, and Pat McAfee was definitely having a good time on TV. Like, that's the way to enjoy a game. It was pretty wild, and so was the game. Georgia Tech hit a last-second 44-yard field goal, pulling off the upset, knocking off the number 10 ranked Seminoles in a game that they did not expect to lose. First time Georgia Tech beat a top 10 competition in their last 15 tries, but that's college football for you. Tons of upcoming games this upcoming week, so keep your eyes out because it'll be coming out Thursday. Lots of big games, lots of big bands kicking off the season in college. Quick CFL Week 12 mention, the Rough Riders took on the Argos. Chad Kelly returned to the lineup after his lengthy suspension for Toronto. He looked a little rusty, but he was doing enough out there. The score tied at 19. Toronto got great field position, lining up for a game-winning field goal where Liam Haralu missed the kick. And as a Rider fan, you're like, oh, he missed it. Then you're like, oh, right, CFL. Ball went out the back of the end zone. The Argonauts won the game with a missed field goal. So weird to see someone celebrate their missed kick. It's weird. So the Argonauts got the walk-off rouge, and you don't get to say walk-off rouge something. It sounds like some last-minute makeup adjustments before hitting the runway, but anywho, a walk-off rouge. Tiger Cats went to visit Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers. Zach Collaros of the Bombers had a rough night, throwing 3 interceptions, but he showed why he's one of the best CFL quarterbacks on the last drive of the game. While trailing late in the fourth, Collaros would march Winnipeg down the field and cap off their drive by finding Kenny Lawler in the end zone. His first touchdown pass of the game with 19 seconds left on the clock secured the Winnipeg win. Another tough loss for Hamilton, who is making a habit of losing tough ones this year. Another tough day at the office for BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke. His return to the CFL has not been as smooth as he was hoping for. His team went to Ottawa and lost a tough one to Ottawa. Rourke was very outplayed by Ottawa quarterback Drew Brown. Ottawa took the win in that one. Elks took on the Alouettes. That's how we wrapped the week up. And it was a tough game that went down the wire. Montreal led late, and Edmonton had one last drive to take the lead. Cloud Bethel Thompson led the Elks down the field, but couldn't get that last-second touchdown. Montreal held on for the 21-17 win as they moved to a CFL best 10-1 and ruined Edmonton's winning streak in the process. When you look at the CFL standings, the East is looking like the beast right now. They have 3 teams over 500, including that great record by the Alouettes I alluded to. Well, out west, the Saskatchewan Roughriders with a 5-5-1 record lead the West. Winnipeg and BC are just behind them at 5-6, and Calgary at 4-6. Shit, Edmonton had a terrible start of the season. They're at 3-8, and they have a chance to win this thing. Should make for an exciting latter half of the season. Week 13 matchups. You got Ottawa heading out to BC for their Thursday night football game. Winnipeg takes on Saskatchewan in the Labor Day Classic. That's always a fun one. Toronto hosts Hamilton, and another Labor Day bout has Edmonton taking on Calgary in the Battle of Alberta. Quick golf mention here. How about Lydia Ko winning the Open, the Women's Open, the British Open as it's called sometimes, at St. Andrews, third major of her career, but it's the first one she's won since 2016, and this all comes after she won the gold medal at these past Olympic Games in Paris, so you could not ask for a better summer for Ko. Quick NFL mentions. Arizona Cardinals Zay Jones has been suspended 5 games for violating the NFL personal conduct policy. And melancholy news as a Green Bay fan, Quadzilla A.J. Dillon, with his neck injury, he's going on season-ending IR, so that's tough for him. And big news for CeeDee Lamb when he checks his bank account. The wide receiver of the Cowboys finally got his contract, 4-year, $136 million contract extension, making him the second highest paid receiver in the game and keeping Dak Prescott happy. So that's it. Wild week in sports here. It's hard to even think straight with what's going on in the world, but sports are a good distraction. One I love really a lot, so much that I talk about it online once a week. But you can't solely bury yourself in the sports. Even I, Rennie, need breaks some sports here and there. A quieter means of entertainment. So a quick segue. The 3 books I really knocked off recently that are pretty good, I must say. First one, I'm even going to do a show and tell. First one, Playing the Long Game by Christine Sinclair. Great book by the life of one of Canada's goats, one of women's soccer goats, or check that. One of soccer's goats, one of footy goats, whatever goat, she's it. Sinclair's one of the best, and she's been pretty to herself throughout her career. So this was a cool way to find out a lot more about Sinclair and, of course, dive into that rivalry between Canada and the United States on the footy pitch. You can tell she's friends with some off the pitch, but on the field, there's no love there. The next book I read, another show here, little family connection on this one, Texting the Talking, Disconnect to Reconnect by Catherine Hott. Yeah, that's my sister. Of course I was going to buy it to support her, and it was a great read. Everyone can probably say we look at our cell phone or devices too much. So it was a cool book that addressed that and elaborates on different ways to improve it. A great read, something I'm proud she was able to accomplish. My final book I'll mention, real hero of mine, The Answer Is by Alex Trebek. My house, we grew up on the Jeopardy. It was one of my favorite family events growing up. My dad was so good at it. And anytime we could get an answer in before dad, it was like a pretty big deal. So this book was absolutely brilliant for me, hearing about the history of Jeopardy, the man who rocked a mustache for years and then suddenly got rid of it. It's cool hearing how he just came to that decision. And then the final stages of Trebek's life draws parallels in my own life from the fight my dad had with cancer. Our friend Tiffany, who recently passed, this book had a lot of I connected with it very much towards the end, and it hit kind of hard near the end, but I feel this book can relate to anyone, so I definitely recommend that one. Any Jeopardy fans out there? I'm happy Alex Trebek was able to release that book before he passed from pancreatic cancer, but there you have it. Rennie is more than just sports. He can read. That's good. Another episode of Sports and Shorts of Sorts in the book. 75 strong. These were years I'd be an old man right now, but this is awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining. I hope you tune in again. Lots of footy going on. Footy's hot right now. College football's in full swing. Campuses around the world. They're going to be mad drunk, probably. Be careful. Lots of good stuff going on as people seek their national championship. Like I said, I got a WNBA one coming out quick. The league's been crazy if you haven't been paying attention. Not just Caitlin Clark. Lots of good players. Asia Wilson's huge 42 night the other night in defeat. But I'm telling you, the WNBA is bumping. And, of course, next week before the NFL kickoff, you're going to hear Ren City's choice of who's going to win the Super Bowl. Am I going to pick the Packers? I try to every year, but maybe I'll use my brain more than my heart. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's episode 75. Thanks for tuning in. Ren City out.